Hello everyone and welcome to the video. Today we will be making some cute little Halloween themed keychains, and for this project we will be using polymer clay, or as we call it, oven baked clay. To make the keychains you will need a keychain ring, a jump ring, and an eye pin. You will also need a pair of pliers. So let's get started with the pumpkin keychain. You're going to start out with some orange clay. You only need a little bit, probably about a quarter-sized amount once you roll it in between your hands. After rolling your clay into a little ball, you're going to flatten it out between your fingers. I like to use my thumbs and my pointer fingers and then rotate the clay to make a nice circle. Next, we'll grab some green clay for the stem. You only need to pinch off a really small portion of clay for this. Then you'll want to pinch it in between your fingers before adding it to the top of your pumpkin. And since this is polymer clay, you don't have to use any glue to attach it. It's also unlike air dry or ceramic clay. You don't need to hydrate it with water. You can simply just stick the piece onto another piece of clay. Just make sure that your attached pieces are nice and firmly attached by pressing and pinching them together. Next, let's grab some black clay and take a little bit off and roll it out and flatten it. This is how we're going to make the face. We'd like to get it nice and flat so that we can cut the face out of it. By doing this, it will be much easier than sculpting the face by pinching, because the face will be pretty small. Now you can grab your knife tool and start to cut out the eyes. For the eyes, I will be doing some little triangles. I'm actually cutting out a way bigger triangle than I need so that I can cut a smaller triangle from the top part, because if I tried to cut the little triangle, it would probably be a lot more difficult and the clay would probably get smushed. Once you have both of your little triangle eyes cut out, you can gently place them on top of your pumpkin. And don't forget to give it a nice little press to make sure that the clay sticks together. But don't press too hard or this will smush the black and smudge the eyes. Now let's create the mouth. This part is going to be the same process as making the eyes. We're going to flatten out a piece of black clay and cut out the shape that we like from this flat piece. I'm going to start off the mouth shape by creating a half circle. You can achieve this by cutting a straight line and then cutting some curves around it. Now that we have a half circle shape, we can start to cut out little triangles for the teeth. You can cut out as many as you'd like. Once you're happy with your little pumpkin, you can add the eye pin into the top of your piece. All you have to do is gently push in the screw end into the clay. Now let's get started on the ghost keychain. Grab yourself some white clay and pinch off a quarter-sized or grape-sized amount. We'll roll it into a ball and flatten it out into an oval shape. What I'm doing here is just softening up the clay to make it easier to work with. If you don't want to pinch your clay, you can also roll the clay into a flat piece and cut the shape from it instead. Once you're happy with the shape of your ghost, you can pinch some little curves onto the bottom of the clay. Now the next part is optional. I'm gonna make some little arms for my ghost. I'm gonna grab just a little bit of clay and pinch it into a long snake shape. Then I'm going to grab half of that and pinch it into an even smaller snake shape. Then I'll rip it in half, and now I have two little arms that I can smush onto the ghost. You can also smooth out the edges with your fingers if it's still bumpy from attaching. Now we can start working on the facial features. For the eyes, I'm pinching off a really small amount of clay and rolling it in between my fingers to make a snake shape. Once my clay is thin enough, I'm going to take the knife tool and cut off really small pieces. These will be the eyes. After I cut all of the eyes, I'm gonna use the rest of the clay and roll it into a small oval shape for the mouth. You can also use your knife tool to reshape the clay after you attach it. And once you're finished with your ghost, you can get your eye pin and insert it with the screw side right into the top of the clay. Now let's get started on the witch's hat. I'm going to be using this light purple, but you can use any color that you want. To make the shape, I'm going to roll out this clay and flatten it and cut the shape out of the clay. For the triangle shape, I will only be cutting two of the sides and leaving the bottom part curvy. That will be the bottom part of the hat. You can also smooth out the edges of the cut clay with your fingers. I am also adding just a little bit of a curve at the top of the hat just to give it a little bit of style. Then you can make a snake shape with the rest of your clay for the edge of the hat. Now we can start adding some decorations. I'm going to pinch off a little bit of yellow to create a moon shape. I'm starting off by pinching a small circle and then pinching the edges of the circle and curving them to make that crescent shape. This shape is a little trickier than the ones we previously worked on, so don't give up and don't get frustrated if it takes you some time. It took me a couple minutes just to get the shape right. Next, we can add some little polka dots onto the hat. Start off by rolling out a really slim and thin snake shape. Then you'll cut off the little pieces and stick them onto the hat. Once you're done decorating the hat, you can insert your eye pin with the screw side facing down into the top of the clay. Make sure to get it in between the clay and not poking through to the other side. For our final keychain, we're going to start off by flattening out some black clay. This will be best if you aim for a circle shape so that we can cut off the top and make the cauldron. If you feel that your shape is a little too big, you can always trim off the excess clay with the knife tool. Now for the handles, we're going to use some clay and roll out another snake shape. It doesn't have to be too long, you only need a little bit. Now you can cut off each handle, and to make sure that they're both even, I'm taking off the first piece that I cut and lining it up with the snake shape so that I can cut the next one at the exact same size. Just be careful not to press them into each other when you cut them, or it will be too tricky to pull them apart. After pulling them apart, you can make a C shape and attach the handles to the sides of your cauldron. Next, we'll grab some green clay for the spooky mixture that's inside of the cauldron. I'm going to roll this into a kind of jelly bean shape. It's almost like a snake shape, but just much thicker. And this little green piece will sit right at the top of the cauldron. Next, for the bubbles, I'm pinching off little pieces of green clay and rolling them in between my fingers and placing them on top of the cauldron. If you're up for a little bit of a challenge, let's make a little skull. Pinch off some white clay and create a small circle shape. Flatten it out and stick it onto the front of your cauldron. Next, pinch off a little piece of white clay and pinch it into an oval or square shape. This is going to be the jaw of the skull and will be placed right underneath the circle. Don't forget that you can always use your knife tool to fix mistakes and help sharpen the image of the skull onto the clay. Now let's work on the eyes. Start off with a small and thin snake shape. I'm going to be making X's for the eyes. To create the X, I'm going to cut off a small piece from the end of the snake shape, and then cut off an identical piece that is the same length. With those two pieces, I'm going to cross them over together to create the X. After that, repeat it again for the next eye. After attaching the eyes, you can use your knife tool to create imprints on the bottom for the teeth. Finally, you can insert your eye pin with the screw side facing down into the clay. Now that all of your keychains are done, it's time to bake. Start by preheating your oven to 350 degrees. While your oven is preheating, grab a baking tray and line it with tinfoil. You'll want to place your clay creations about 1 inch apart from each other. Then you'll put them in the oven for about 15 minutes. After your creations are cool to the touch, you can grab a jump ring and start assembling the keychain. Insert the jump ring through the eye pin and then hold the jump ring with your other hand. This will make it easier to attach the end of the keychain part into the jump ring. Then you can grab your pliers and gently close the jump ring shut. Make sure that there is no open space so that the keychain will stay together and not fall off. Now we can just repeat the process with the other 3 keychains. Alright, and this is the end of the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope your creations turned out really cute. And most importantly, please don't forget to turn off your oven. Alright, see you in the next video.